and welcome everybody to Oxford X. My name is Samir and I'm delighted to be here with you today on behalf of Oxbridge. So a little bit about Oxbridge before we get started is we specialise in preparing students for 11 plus exams, helping them build their confidence and master the skills they need to excel. So years of experience teaching 11 plus students and helping many children succeed their entrance exams and gain a place of entry into the school of their choice. I'm really excited to go through some 11 plus questions with you today. This is, I believe it's the fourth or the fifth one in a series of live streams that I will be conducting every Mondays, where we tackle some challenging questions. I go through some tips and guidance of how to approach 11 plus questions and provide expert strategies and answer some of your questions that you may have live. So feel free, as I'm speaking, if you have any questions or if you feel like something doesn't make sense, to drop a comment in the comment section. Right, so today we are going to be looking at 11 plus comprehension and some of the useful tips that you want to think about when you're approaching the comprehension component of the exam. So let me share my screen. Right. So hopefully everyone can see the slide, the PowerPoint, sorry, on the screen. So a little bit about the comprehension component of the exam and what it is, why it is that they include it, and what the examiners are looking for as part of this exam. So comprehension. Well, when I think of comprehension, I think of the word comprehending, right? And what comprehending means is your ability to understand something. Yeah. So comprehension, when you're reading the text, the main thing is you understand what the text is talking about. It's going to be really hard to answer the questions if you're not sure what the story entails. So having a very comprehensive understanding of the text often helps. When I say having a comprehensive understanding of the text, it's being able to, once you finish the text, if I was to ask you to give a summary to a younger brother or sister, you'd be able to give quite a knowledgeable summary of what the story was about. Yeah. When you're reading the text, there are some things that you want to think about that will help you as you answer the question. So having a sense of what this text is about is obviously, like we just touched on it, comprehending the text. Being able to imagine what is going on. When I think of comprehension, I often tell my students to place yourself in the shoes of the character in the text, understand the feelings, the emotions, the tone, the imagery of what's going on, because that will help you paint a better picture. Be a detective. So understand. So being a detective is very important when it comes to inference questions of the exam. So inference questions of the comprehension part is when they ask you questions that is trying to get you to understand what the writer is trying to do. So by the use of, I'm not sure, like an example, so like use of vivid imagery, what picture is the writer trying to create? If it's a scary story, how has the writer created that scary story, right? So being a detective is really figuring out, okay, what is the writer trying to get at? What type of mood is he trying to get? And how can I tell this? If there's specific type of imagery that suggests that the story is quite a happy story? Is there's particular words or phrases that suggest actually the story is quite gloomy? So it's all about reading in between the lines. So being a detective, when detectives go out there and do their jobs, what they're essentially looking out for is clues, right? Clues that get them to the answer, which is exactly what you're looking for. Clues to try and understand what the writer's trying to get at. Now, there's 3 questions that I ask my students when they finish reading a comprehension exam. Who is the audience, intended audience? So who's the writer writing for? Is it for kids? Is it for adults? Is it for young adults? Is there actually no particular age? Okay. What is the tone of the story? Is it a happy tone? Is it a sad tone? Right? And is it a fiction or a non-fiction? Now, the reason I say that is because Comprehension 11 Plus does differentiate between fictional stories, which is obviously stories that are made up, and non-fiction stories, which sometimes are to inform. Why do we read fictional story, guys? Because they entertain us, right? We read fictional stories because they entertain us. Why do we read non-fiction? Because they inform us. So being able to tell this distinction will give you a bit of purpose of what the text is about, what the writer is trying to do, right? So let's move on. So direct comprehension. So there's another word for this is retrieval questions. Okay, retrieval questions is where I can literally pick out the answer in the text. There's no having to fish out for it or go read between the lines. The answer is literally inside the text. The comprehension is in essence the mark scheme, right? Now, the difference between that is inference comprehension. Okay, these are the trickiest types of questions in 11 plus. Now, why is that? Because you need to kind of figure out what is being implied in the passage rather than what's actually written. Okay, and the way that you answer that question, obviously it depends what school you're going for, because some schools give inference questions in multiple choices, whereas some schools actually require you to write a 3-mark answer in the format of the PEE, which stands for point, evidence, and explanation. Now, it's really hard to try and explain this in the 30 minutes that we have. So I will be running a whole different session on PE and how to approach PE paragraphs in comprehension. So stay tuned for that one, guys. But here's an example on the screen. Did John have a good day? Explain why. So that requires, when it's like an explanation, you have to kind of look at the text, dig out the clues, what suggests John is having a good day. So it requires a lot more thinking than the direct comprehension, where the answer is explicitly in the text, isn't it? Reading for meaning. Very common in 11 plus, and now this is the part where I see my students often trip and they go, I don't know the meaning of this word, so I don't know what the word means. Now, the reason they do that is because it requires you to understand the text. Like it all really links back to the word comprehending something, right? If you're able to comprehend something, you're able to understand the context of which it is written. Yeah. So when my students tell me, well, miss, I don't know what the word means, have you tried reading between the lines? Have you looked at the context of the sentence? Could you, if I was to take that word out, right, and put a different word, with the sentence or with the story, right, the flow of the story still makes sense? Yes or no, right? So it's about brainstorming. We're not dictionaries, right? We're not walking dictionaries, and I'm not a walking dictionary, that's for sure. There's probably words out there that I probably don't know, right? And you're not a walking dictionary either. It's completely understandable. So what it requires is sort of reading in the context of the sentence, right? What if I don't understand the word? Could I carry on reading to try to figure out what the word means? Yes or no? Yeah. Most of the time you can. So there should be no. No is not an option for this one. You can figure out what the word is. And I normally train my students to always make sure that they use that technique. Read the sentence before, read the sentence after. You can figure out what the word means. Right? You might not get a precise dictionary definition, but that's okay, right? Amazing. So I thought today what we can do is go through a comprehension passage. We probably won't do everything, but I thought it would be nice to kind of understand the thought process within the questions and kind of differentiate between these inference and retrieval questions. So without further ado, I am actually going to read the passage out loud. So for the purpose of this section, I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Extract from The Shooting of Elephant. One day, something happened with a roundabout way was enlightening. It was a tiny incident in itself, but it gave me a better glimpse than I had before of the real nature of imperialism, the real motives of which despotic governments act. Early one morning, the sub-inspector at a police station on the other end of the town rang me up on the phone and said that an elephant was ravaging the bazaar. Would I please come and do something about it? I did not know what I could do, but I wanted to see what was happening, and I got on the pony and started out. I took my rifle, an old 44 Winchester, and much too small to kill an elephant, but I thought the nose might be useful in terror. Various Burmans stopped me on the way and told me about the elephant's doings. It was not, of course, a wild elephant, but a tame one which had gone must. It had been chained up, as tame elephants always are when their attack of must is due. But on the previous night, it had broken its chain and escaped. Its man-hound, the only person who could manage it when it was in that state, had set out in pursuit, but had taken the wrong direction. And now, 12 hours' journey away, and in the morning the elephant had suddenly reappeared in the town. The Burmese population had no weapons, and were quite helpless against it. It had already destroyed somebody's bamboo hut, killed a cow, and raided some fruit stalls and devoured the stock. Also, it had met the municipal rubbish van, and when the driver jumped out and took it to its heels, had turned the van over and inflicted violences upon it. The Burmese sub-inspector and some Indian constables were waiting in the quarter where the elephant had been seen. It was a very poor quarter, a labyrinth of squalid bamboo huts thatched with palm leaf, winding all over a steep hillside. I remember that it was a cloudy, stuffy morning at the beginning of the rains. We began questioning the people as to where the elephant had gone, and, as usual, failed to get any definite information. That is invariably the case in the East. The story always sounds clear enough at a distance, but the nearer you get to the scene of events, the vaguer it becomes. Some of the people said that the elephant had gone in one direction. Some said they had gone in another. Some professed not even to have heard of an elephant. I had almost made up my mind that the whole story was a pack of lies, when we heard yells a little distance away. There was a loud, scandalized cry of, "Go away, child! Go away this instant!" And an old woman with a switch in her hand came round the corner of the hut, violently shooing away a crowd of children. Amazing. So hopefully everyone understood the text. It's okay if you didn't. The slides will be up, hopefully, for you to watch. Come back and watch this. And if you want to maybe take another read at it, then please do so. Right. Let's have a look at the questions. Oh, no, we're not looking at the questions yet. Sorry, beg your pardon. There's still more to read. Right. Some more women followed, clicking their tongues and exclaiming. Evidently, there was something the children ought to not have seen. I rounded the hut and saw a man's dead body sprawling in the mud. He was an Indian, and he could not have been dead many minutes. The people said that the elephant had come suddenly upon him, round the corner of the hut, caught him with its trunk, put its foot on his back, and ground him into the earth. This was the rainy season, and the ground was soft, and his face had scorched a trench a foot deep and a couple of yards long. He was lying on his belly with arms crucified and head sharply twisted to one side. His face was coated with mud, the eyes wide open, the teeth bared and grinning with an expression of unendurable agony. Never tell me, by the way, that the dead look peaceful. Most of the corpses I have seen look devilish. The friction of the great beast's foot had stripped the skin from his back as neatly as one skins a rabbit. As soon as I saw the dead man, I sent an orderly to a friend's house nearby to borrow an elephant rifle. I had already sent back the pony, not wanting it to go mad with fright and throw me if it smelt the elephant. Well, it was nice that we got the ending of the story, wasn't it, guys? I actually haven't not read this extract before, and the reason I picked an extract that I haven't done my students was because I wanted to show you what sort of things I'm thinking as I put myself in a student's position that's taking the exam. And yes, I am that young. I'm joking. So if I put myself in the student's position, like what sort of things should I be thinking, right? So, without further ado, the first question. What is the animal that the main character is looking to kill? Now, can anyone in the comments please tell me what type of question that is? Is that a direct or retrieval question, or is that an inference question? I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds to do that. Is that a direct question, or is that an inference question? I'm just going to have a look at the comments to see if anyone has put any comments. Retrieval. Retrieval. Amazing. Great work, guys. It is indeed a retrieval question. Amazing. So it is a retrieval or a direct question. Reason being is because the answer is in the text, right? So if I go back, can anyone tell me what animal the main character is looking to kill? And the sentence is literally there. So let me see if anyone's commented. Excellent. Well done. Well done. Amazing. Yeah, it is an elephant. Good job. Amazing. Yes. Amazing. Glad to see everyone is comprehending the comprehension. So yes, it is a elephant. Amazing. Right. Question number 2. Now, this is the one that gets my students absolutely wanting to roll under. So describing your own words at the right words to justify being killed. And I think it's that the sort of freedom that students have when it says describing your own words. When you have direct questions, it's much easier, right? Because the answer in the text. Describing your own words, you really do need to. I think what people find hard is constructing sentences on their own. But I always say, when I say describe it in your own words, imagine you were telling me, right? Telling me. If I was just to ask you what the animal has done to just be killed, it's just about explaining it to me, right? Imagine me and you are talking. I just think, what has animal done justify being killed, right? You're not going to go, well, the text says this. No, you're talking to me as if, it's an informal conversation. From there, write a sentence, yeah? There's no need to think too deeply about this question. And they're not looking for fancy words, guys. I think the reason that students get a bit overwhelmed with this question is because they're looking for a very sophisticated way to explain or answer the question, but that's not what the examiner is looking for. The examiner is looking for your ability to comprehend and being able to actually use your own words to answer the question, right? So what has animal done to justify being killed? Now the answer is 3 marks, okay? And the reason being is because you probably need to write 3 sentences, right? Or have 3 reasons, yeah? So either one of the 2. 3 reasons, 3 sentences. You can't find 3 reasons to write 3 sentences, yeah? But if it's 3 marks, I always say the amount of marks is equivalent to the number of sentences you should be writing. Please, please, please remember that. I've seen so many people lose marks because the questions are 2 marker and they've written 1 sentence. Not going to work, yeah? So make sure if it's 3 marker, you're writing 3 sentences. If it's a 4 marker, you're writing 4 sentences. If it's a 9 marker, which is highly rare, unless it's some schools, I think it's trying to think of what school I saw that used a 9 marker. I think it was Hampton, but I'm not sure. I think it was Hampton or Eton College, but one of the schools definitely used 9 markers. So that just means often 2 PE paragraphs, but we're going to stick to 2 and 3 for now. So can anyone tell me what the animal has done to justify being killed? Does anyone want to give a shot and tell me in their own answers? You don't have to give 3 reasons, maybe just give me 1. Now I can see there are 3 reasons. So therefore there's 3 separate sentences. Let me have a look at the comments and what you guys are writing. The elephant has killed a man and cow, destroyed lots of stores and caused chaos around the country. Everyone's alarmed and scared that it was hosted about the stock. Amazing. Well done. 3 marks right there. Nice and easy. You should just take over the lesson now. So absolutely, you're absolutely right. So it has indeed, it's torn up the market, it's killed a man, and it's. I think the last thing that you said. What was the last thing that you said? Devour the stock. Absolutely, spot on. 3 marks. Yeah, easy peasy. Yeah, amazing. Right, we're going to skip question 3. We're going to go straight on to question 4. What do you think the following words mean? Remember when we talked about that, guys, in the beginning? I spoke to you about, you know, they give you these questions. It's very common, and I can't go miss any dictionary. No, it's about looking at the text. Let's practice this. Must. Please don't think that must is the same definition as must. Like I must, like the imperative verb must. No, life is never that easy, unfortunately, guys. Life is always a bit difficult. So you have to go back to the text, unfortunately, and figure out what this means. It's not your generic must. So it says line 2, so line 12. So beg your pardon. So please do go to line 12. Fortunately, I don't have the numbers here, so I'm gonna have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Has anybody found it? I think I may have skipped. Oh, it was definitely not on line 12. God, that's okay. Perfect. Then I found it there. I'm just going to underline it so that everybody knows where it is as well. Right. Okay, now, before I go, oh my goodness, I have no idea what the word means in this context. Read the sentence from the start. So I'm going to read right from the start. And all the way to where the full stop is. Okay? It was not, of course, a wild elephant, but a tame one, which had gone which had gone must. I still don't know a lot about the word to be able to give you a definite answer. I'm going to carry on reading. It had been chained up, as tame elephants always are when their attack of must is due. I'm getting a bit more. But on the previous night, it had broken its chain and escaped. As tame elephants always are when their attack of must is due. Well, the verb attack has connotations of something being, chaotic, destructive, right? So, attack of must. To be must means something. And I'm guessing that it means to be destructive in this case. But will that still make sense? If I take out the word must, guys, and substitute it with to be destructive, does it make sense? Let's have a look. It had been chained up, as tame elephants always are, when their attack of destruction is due. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does make sense to become. So their attack of almost being like destructive and chaotic is due. That makes sense. Let's see if it works here. It was not, of course, a wild elephant, but a tame one which had gone destructive. Makes sense. I think that's the best fit, guys. And can you tell how I use the sentence to kind of figure out what it means, right? Let's have a look at another one. I'm going to go for despotic. Right? Line 4. Despotic. Right. I'm not expecting 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds to know what the word means, okay? But I am expecting you to try and figure out from the context of the sentence. One day, something happened in a roundabout way. So can you see how I'm not going to read from it? I'm going to read, it's fine to just pick as far back as you want to go, right? I always think the further back, the better. Be able to understand the word better, right? And the context of which it is written in. So one day, something happened, which in a roundabout way was enlightening. It was a tiny incident in itself, but it gave me a better glimpse than I had before of the real nature of imperialism, the real motives of which despotic governments act. Early one morning, the sub-inspector placed on the other hand of the town rang me up on the phone and said that an elephant was ravaging the bazaar. Would I please come and do something about it? I did not know what I'd do, but I wanted to see what was happening. And I got on my pony and started out. I took my rifles, an old 41 which are much too small to kill an elephant, but I thought the noise might be useful in terror. Right. So, I'm getting the sense that despotic means something negative. Right? Now, if it means something negative and if it's describing the government, right, What could it possibly mean? Does anyone in the comments want to give me a suggestion of what they think to spotting means based on that, the passage that I just read out? Discord. I'm gonna have a look at the comments. Anyone have a guess? Tyrannical. Yes, absolutely. I do agree with you. There's something negative about the thing. This is not portraying the government in a particularly positive light, is it? You are on fire today. So absolutely. So it does mean the word despotic does mean tyrannic or an oppressive or cruel ruler. Now, the way that I figured that out, and the way that you probably figured out, is because there's nothing positive talking about the government's actions, right? The real motive suggests that the government is acting in a sort, has an underlying agenda. And, governments that normally have an underlying agenda, there's a specific word for that, which is tyrant. And the tyrant means an oppressive ruler. Yeah. So, can you see how we use the text to try? You can even figure out, I think, if you find it too hard to find the meaning, think of this question. Is it a word that has positive connotations, or is it a word that has negative connotations? Right? Which one is it? Yeah, amazing. Oh, we do have an MR question. How exciting! But I'm going to save that one for the when we do PE. But with focus on the beginning of the second paragraph, were the local people successful in helping find the elephant? Give evidence to support your answer. Now, guys, is this a direct question, or is it a inference question? Is it a retrieval or inference question, or is it a little bit of both? Can anyone in the comments tell me what they think? Is it inference or retrieval, or is it a little bit of both? Inference or retrieval, or is it a little bit of both? So maybe that's one's a bit tricky, guys. It is actually a little bit of both. The reason I say it's a little bit of both is because the first part of the question, it's asking you a question. Why are they successful in helping helping the man find the elephant? That is a yes or no question. It's nothing that you need to select from the text, right? But give evidence to support your answer is a direct question, because you need to really retrieve. When they say give evidence, you really need to use your quotation marks to be able to give evidence. Yeah. So I'm going to look back at the text. Okay, I'm going to look at the second paragraph. Were they successful? I'm going to assume by the second paragraph they mean, I'm trying to figure out, sorry guys, because the passage is all together. Let's have a look at this one. Maybe it's the second paragraph. Right, so guys, the second paragraph is actually in this one. Oh, is actually this one. Yeah. So were they successful? The Burmese sub-inspector and some Indian constables were waiting for me in the quarter where the elephant had been seen. It was a very poor quarter, a labyrinth of squalid bamboo huts, thatched with palm leaves, wandering all over to a steep hill. I remember that it was a cloudy, stuffy morning at the beginning of the rains. We began questioning the people as to where the elephant had gone, and, as usual, failed to get any definite information. That is invariably the case in the East. The story always sounds clear enough at a distance, but the nearer you get to the scene of events, the vaguer it becomes. So I'm getting the sense, right, that they weren't successful, because it says here, we began questioning the people as where the elephant had gone, and as usual failed to get any definite information. Therefore, they were not successful. There doesn't signal anything to me in the text that I just read that suggests that it was successful. Now, how do I answer this question? Now, it's really important when we're answering these comprehension questions that are 3 markers that you write in full sentences. And what I mean by writing in full sentences, I always do this exercise with my students, right? I ask them a question like, "What's your favorite color?" And they say pink, and I'm like, "That's not a full sentence. A full sentence is my favorite color is pink." It's directly answering the question, so that if the question was not present, your answer, I'd be able to tell what I'd be able to figure out what you're trying to say. Right. So if I said, "What's your favorite food?" and you said pizza, but then if I took away the question, you just said pizza, I'll just be like, "What are you talking about?" Right. So full sentences is directly respond to the question. So the local people were successful in helping the man find the elephant. Right. This is because the writer writes, as usual, they failed to get any definite information. That's 2 marks. Why? Because that's 2 sentences I've given. The 3rd mark, it comes from the explanation. What does a quotation mean? This means that it was common for the local Burmese people to provide misleading information, which is, of course, is not helpful to their man. That's 3 sentences, right? And that comes under PE, which is a very much lengthier topic, yeah. But I think the main point of today, guys, which we did really well on, and I can tell, is figuring out the difference between indirect and direct questions, right? And understanding what comprehension means. I will carry on next time with a bit more in PE and how to write your sentences. But the main part is actually always scanning back to the text. You form your opinions based on the text, right? That's why it's really important to have a good understanding of it. Amazing. So, without further ado, if anyone has any questions, please drop it into the chat below. Let me just have a look if anyone has any questions quickly before I wrap things up. Oh, sorry, you did write something. Not much, because even though some helped, others didn't, and they failed to get to that. It's also something that we were going. Others said it was going. Amazing, well done, Sugapi. Well done, amazing. You have been in the absolute star of today's show, haven't you? Inference questions, and you absolutely knew. So that one was inference and retrieval. So that was a trick question. It was a bit of both. If no one has any questions, I will wrap things up. Amazing, guys. So that brings us to the end of today's session. I really hope you found this helpful. Like I said, we will be continuing on with comprehension, maybe the following week or the following week after. And I'm going to look at a bit more into PE paragraphs, so point, evidence, and explanation, which is the most common type of question for the 11 plus, and it's really important that we learn how to tackle it from an earlier stage rather than getting into year 6 or 11 plus exam, because it takes a lot of practice to kind of get the hang of it. Amazing. So as you can see, we have a wonderful QR code on the screen, and the reason is because I want you to scan that QR code once you finish watching this, or after you've had your tea or your supper, and go take the assessment. Right now, I've done the assessment myself, right, and I can tell you, and I've got my students, some of my students, my current students, I go to the assessment, and it takes 15 minutes of your time, right? And the reason why you would benefit from taking the assessment, because from there, you are able to understand a bit of what the 11 plus is like, right? And once you are done, you're able to book a trial session with us, right? And that trial session would be a one-to-one tuition session. Hopefully, it is with my wonderful face, but if it's not, with one of our wonderful tutors. And they will be covering, an 11 plus topic, right? And now the reason why Oxbridge differentiates between different tutors is because once the session is done, what you will receive is a personalized, student learning plan and a personalized feedback, right? That will help target your key areas of improvement, right? And it's using sophisticated AI. So it's absolutely accurate, and it is really, really tailored to you, which I think is absolutely fundamental to progressing in life. You need the feedback that is tailored to you. How can you get better from today's session to next week's session? Because it's all about progress. right? You think of it like a graph you want it to go up. So take the free assessment, scan that QR code, or alternatively, go onto the URL. So just type in oxbridge.com/assessment, and you should be able to go on there and do the assessment on there. And then also what you can do on the website is if you have any tricky questions that you've come across in homework or come across in school, or come across when you're doing your work, please submit your tricky questions for me to go through with you next week. Like I said, every Mondays at 6. And that way, you get some personalized strategies on how to tackle the question. So, like I said, do the QR code, do the assessment, book in your consultation, receive your personalized feedback, which will be absolutely beneficial to parents as well. So this part's for parents. So I think parents will very much appreciate what their students, what their child is getting up to, and how they're progressing. Right. So I hope today's comprehension was very, very useful to you guys. It was a pleasure. If you liked this video, if you loved this video, give it a like. And if you absolutely loved it, give us a subscribe and hit the notification bell so every time you get on Monday at 6 p.m. you get to see my wonderful face. Thank you so much for joining, guys, and I shall see you next time.